yeah, my dad smoked crack. My brother sold my dad crack. They were gangsters, ran around, taught me to cook crack. Mom was a prostitute. She was raped, had miscarriages, beat me for no reason, almost choked me to death one time. We are all in control of ourselves, and we are all still who we are. And I think that's also the difference between me and certain members of my family that kind of went down the same path.
You said it's actually the good memories of my childhood that make me sad. Why is that? Because that seems, obviously that's counterintuitive. Usually the good memories of someone's childhood make them happy, right?
Yeah, it's because I have so few of them. Like, it's like literally just a couple. It's like Easter egg hunting with my mom once, and skateboarding at the skate park was nice. But yeah, for the most part, dude, it's just like it was a bunch of BS. It was really difficult. Kind of growing up and knowing that the stuff that I remember and the only really good memories that I have are things that most people would just take for granted because they have so many good memories, which is cool. But yeah.
The memories that I have from childhood that are good are so few and far between and so small that they're the ones that other kids would just throw away. You mentioned the Easter egg hunt, right? Staying in an apartment with no electricity and no furniture and making shadow puppets, which, like, as a current parent, I'm imagining that you have the same thoughts as I do, where you're like, wait. Like, that's red flag city, right? But when a kid's like, oh, it was so fun, we had no furniture, no electricity. You're like, as a kid, you're like, oh, cool. But as an adult, you're like, whoa. Tell me again, where are you sleeping where you don't have a bed? Where are you sleeping where there's no food? That kind of thing is not, that's like not the environment you want to raise a kid in. And I assume as a parent now, you're like, whoa. Actually, how's this? You as a parent now must every day have a feeling where you're like, you know, when we did this, when I was growing up, we did it this other way. And 2020 hindsight, that was a little fucked up that they did that way.
Yeah, totally. Like, I think it's just, it's definitely a weird thing to, like, think of my childhood. Like I had a great childhood because I made it good. You know what I mean? Like, I played with my friends and I played video games and I ran around and I ran through the woods and played basketball and like all these things. It's like I couldn't play basketball on a team because we were too poor to afford jerseys and shit, you know? But yeah, it is definitely weird. I remember talking to my wife and I was like, okay, so if he does something like really, really bad, like do we spank him? She was like, no. And I was like, really? Like, but this was like years ago before we even had a kid. And I was just like, I don't know. I feel like da-da-da. I was like, well, if he calls you a bitch, you might get a little smack.
Yeah, I mean, and she's like, one, he's literally going to do that like once when he's 19 and we're never going to have to deal with it again. And it's a whole sit-down conversation. And two, like, what do you mean? Are we going to lock him in a closet for 3 hours? Like, no, we're not going to do any of that shit.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, yeah. But I'm like half kidding. Right. Obviously, not in the sense of like abuse, but like I just came up where it's like if you do something wrong, you get a little like smack on your wrist or something like that. But now, as a parent, I realize you don't need any physical, I mean, except for possibly restraining, you know.
Well, yeah.
If they're like in their little hitting phase and they don't know how to express themselves and things like that.
I gotta wonder though, when did you first realize that you didn't have a normal childhood, right? Because when you're young and you're eating donuts for dinner and like your mom's yelling at people on the phone and cursing sometimes at you and like it's every day, there's got to be a time, like when you're that age, you're like, this is what families are like. There's got to be an age where you're like, wait, you know what? This is so weird. My family is weird as hell because I went to my friend's house or whatever, you know, the contrast was. And you're like, so your dad got mad at your mom and they like sat down and talked about it. And also you didn't have donuts for dinner. Like, what the hell planet am I on?
Yeah, that's definitely when you go to your friend's house. So it's like, you know, when you're at the skate park especially, there's just all walks of life and, you know, people who have money, people who don't. It doesn't really matter. You're just skating. And then you make a friend and you go spend the night at his house, and his house is a mansion in Potomac, Maryland. And you're like, holy shit. And it's not even about the wealth factor. It's just a lot of people with money tend to be happier. And it's not because of the money. It's because I think the money has given them comfort. And when you're comfortable, you can focus on other shit. So when you're not stressed out all the time, you know what I mean? Like, and every penny matters, which it did for me my whole life. Like, so I understood that, but I just kind of see these people who's like stable job, good mom, also has a job or stay at home or whatever. And it's just like, I mean, they have champagne problems. There's still problems. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, I got in a little accident, a little fender bender, or this or that, or blah blah blah. But it's not like, oh, this bitch stole my crack rock. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the shit I was dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, some of the stories about your mom, you got to find it strange to tell the stories, right? Because sometimes when you write this down, I wonder if you thought, are people going to believe this? Because there has to be a point at which you're writing this down and you go, people are going to think I'm exaggerating this, right? I come from this crazy place and I've built a successful career for myself. People they're going to look at this and be like, this is like for effect. He's writing this down. It's embellished.
You can ask my brothers and sisters.
I believe you. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Did you think that people wouldn't believe you? Because
but I
it
mean,
is crazy.
I said that even in the book. I was like, you know, when I look back and discuss, you know, my come up in my childhood, I always feel like I'm lying. Like there's a part of me that's embellishing or this or that or whatever the case may be. And then, you know, the book opens up with my mother's screaming on the phone and going crazy. And it's because I'm listening back to a 16-year-old recording while I was recording music. I stopped it and you can hear my mom record going crazy in the background. And the funniest part is like it's in the audiobook. And it's gnarly, and that just gives me that feeling of like, oh right, it's worse than I thought it was. You know what I mean? So yeah, people could for sure. It's like, yeah, my dad smoked crack, my brother sold my dad crack, they were gangsters, ran around, taught me to cook crack, you know what I mean? Brothers on drugs, mom was a prostitute, she was raped, had miscarriages, beat me for no reason, almost choked me to death one time. Yeah, I mean, it's just you know, I've been kidnapped, held hostage. Like, bro, like my mom got stabbed once. Like, it's just like, what? It's like, this cannot be real. And this is like all before you even get to like the music, because it's like 3 parts, right? And so 2 of those parts are over 200 pages. And it like, at first, it wasn't even going to be that. It was just going to be like, yeah, I'm Logic, a rap. But I didn't really give a shit about that, and I just started talking about my life, man. You know, and I feel like fans of mine, like real fans, know all that shit anyway, like about my music. Now they might not know certain things like what I was going through or what I was experiencing or the height of my career and what was going on in the background. So I explained that. But for me, I was just like, this needs to be personal. I don't really think anybody gives a shit like about my rapping technique at 3 a.m. in a studio. So I was just like, let me just tell my story.
Yeah, that's interesting because there probably actually are tons of people that wanted to learn that, but I think, and in fact, I kind of expected some of that from your book, and there is some of that in there, but it was more interesting than I thought it would be to get an autobiography of somebody that when the book starts out with that audio sample of your mom having a meltdown, I was like, oh man, that's kind of a rough moment. And then you realize that moment actually stretches out through your whole early childhood, or your whole life actually, you know, until you became an adult and moved out and made you who you are. So that becomes interesting because a lot of people who go through that kind of thing, and you mentioned this at the end of the book, you say that your parents or whatever broke your brothers and sisters, but they didn't break you. And the scoreboard says that you're a really successful person. And y'all go over some of your accolades in the show close if people don't know in the intro. But like that, you like definitely are not a fuck up, right? Like 100% you have succeeded in life.
That's very sweet. I'd like to think so. You know, it's a weird thing not really having anybody to look up to. My hair is so crazy. Everyone should know you made me take my hat off.
That's right. It's my fault.
I looked a lot more presentable, but I had a shadow cast on my face. Anyway, but yeah, man, there was no role model. There was nobody to really look up to. So every time I saw my dad smoke crack or saw a man hit my mom, or you know, my sisters came back from, you know, being raped or sexually assaulted, or it's like, oh, so you don't beat a woman, you don't take advantage of a woman, you don't smoke crack, you don't smoke PCP. Oh, it was just something that, in me that was just like, right.
Well, you had common sense of a high, you know what it is? It's probably, it's got to be some sort of social intelligence, because a lot of people would go, well, this is what adults do. They do this horrible stuff, and it's just a part of life. And you were like, oh, avoid that, because that makes you sleep outside in a dumpster. That makes you go violent against your family members, and then you get arrested. Like, you had an opposite reaction from that. And you know, your mom yelling at you and saying things like, you deserve to feel pain. You don't know what pain is. I hope you feel pain. I wonder, in the moment, was it hard to hear things like that from your mom, or were you kind of like, what the hell, Mom? I'm just trying to watch cartoons. Like, how sort of did you handle that in the moment?
It's definitely a bit of both, because it's just like then you get used to it. You know what I mean? Like, and she's also saying these things, and like as I get older and begin to question her faith or her way of life or whatever, because I'm a child and I just want to know things and ask questions, that's when those things start to happen. So like even the first time I heard bipolar or mental problems or all this other shit of her screaming on the phone, that doesn't resonate at 4, 5. And then 6, and then 7, you start to be like, bipolar, what the hell is that? And we're in therapist's office, and she's screaming and running out. So this is about the time where I'm like asking these questions, and she's like, shut the fuck up, and screaming at me, and I'm like, oh my God. And then that's when she's like, you deserve pain. You deserve to feel what it feels like. You don't know what I've been through. I was sodomized and, had a red hot knife pressed up against my throat by 2 men at the same time. And I'm like 8. And I'm like, what the hell's sodomized? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like Googling in this. Ugh.
Yeah, but my mother was a sick person. That's the
course.
biggest thing I discuss in the book is like, yeah, there was times in my life where I was totally angry with her and upset, and the same with my father. But everything, no matter how honest it is, and sometimes the truth just hurts, and sometimes the truth is like hell, it's just gnarly. But the fact of the matter is, I've forgiven them. I understand that they are mentally ill people. I get that. I don't hold it against them. I wish they weren't that. And I think there were times in my life when I could see the kind of pure little kid inside of them. Like there were times when I could see that, and it was a really beautiful thing. But it's like, I don't say anything in any of this like with disdain. It's just what happens, it's like, or what happened to me. My mom tried to kill me. She was the definition of a hypocrite. If I stubbed my toe and was like, Jesus, she'd be like, don't take the Lord's name in vain. God damn it, you motherfucker. Like that's,
yeah.
And so I just kind of accepted it. And I was like, all right, hopefully I don't do that when I'm older.
Yeah. I mean, she was just like reading the book and you realize like her religious fanaticism was just probably her trying to gain 1% control over anything in her life when she had no control over, obviously no control over anything else in her life.
For sure. I mean, it's a crazy thing, and that's why it's like when I do speak on religion in the book, I'm like, dude, like, I'm not personally religious. I believe in something, and like I said, I don't think it's Sky Dad. I don't think it's some white dude with a beer on a cloud. Like, I don't think that, but I also can't disprove it at the same time. You know what I mean? But I don't hate on anybody's faith, anybody's religion. I don't think it's weird, nothing like that. But my mother, when I discuss, it's like, dude, I mean, you read, like, there's. Like we were Christian forever, and we're going to like the black church, the white church, the Spanish church, the Pentecostal homosexuals are going to hell church, like all this stuff that a kid is like, what is a homosexual? Like, I don't even understand.
And then
that.
you became a Catholic until she got pissed off at somebody, and then you're like we're not Catholics anymore. All right,
literally,
whatever.
Yeah, we were Catholic for like 3 weeks, dude. It's just the craziest thing. So I had to learn about even just like equality. And it's just, my mom was so weird, and mind you, she was also like systemically racist. So she'd be. I mean, I don't mind fucking saying it, but I don't want to blast it on your podcast. But she'd call me the N-word with a hard R. She'd call all my brothers and sisters the N-word with a hard R. She'd call any black person that she could that. But then at the same time, she'd be chilling and hanging out with black folks like the next weekend until she dropped something like that. I mean, it's the reason she got stabbed in the park when I was 16 years old. Like, it's crazy. So I had to learn. Like, it's like there was levels of self-hatred that she was like embedding into my mind, but I was like, no, black is beautiful. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, gay people are just people, like, that just happen to like the same set. Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like,
but for her, everything was
not important. Yeah, so and for people who are listening to us, which is the majority of the audience, you're mixed. So it's like she would use the N-word with the hard R, and it's like, that my dad is black and that your son and all of your other kids are like mixed. So it's just, but she just couldn't. This is like she just wanted to get a rise out of you, or she was, who knows? I mean, who knows?
What it is I say she went for whatever would cut deep. So it's like, if you're fat, she calls you fat. If you're ugly, she calls you ugly. If your teeth are messed up, she'll just go in on you about that. But then, she'll also be like, turn the other cheek, Robert. Like, on these other moments. And then she's like going off on the pastor at the church. Like, like it's just crazy, dude. Like, but that's another thing, you know, when I've said that in hip hop, that my mother has used racism as a tool of anger and a weapon against me. So many people are like, yo, that don't even make sense. And it's like, I know it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I never tried to make sense of it. I just did my best to have empathy for a woman who had serious mental illness problems and realized, you're right, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense that any child in the world should have to experience or go through that, but I did, and I'd like to think I learned from it, and I hope I'm a better father than my parents. You know what I mean? So
luckily, you'd have to try really hard to be worse. So there's that, right? The bar is so low, it's like you're just skipping over it without any effort at all.
That's funny, man, and it's funny too because it's like I'm not like even talking to you about this right now is very therapeutic because like I'm not trying to shit on these people, man.
Right.
Like that's my number one thing, and I think I make that very clear in the book.
You do, yeah.
It's like I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but you could read this and be like, "How could you say this about your mother? How could you say this about your father?" But
it's clear that you're telling it from like this is a retelling that is so crazy. I hope you get some entertainment from it, and it's like your dad. You just the stories your dad tells, for example. You're just like, bro, what? What are you talking about? You were not Smokey Robinson's backup singer. Like, stop.
It's pretty funny, man. But it's like, it's also not funny, right?
Right.
So it's like it's like Chandler for Friends. It's like I kind of, you know, this book is very funny. Like it's really it is funny. But I take things that are painful. Like, dude, I remember when I was basically the biggest rapper in the world and I had the song 1-800 out, and you know it's about suicide prevention and all this other stuff. There's a part in the book where I'm like, I was dealing and talking about suicide so much. I was malnourished. I was unhealthy. I was mentally going through the craziest time of my life. I was in the middle of a divorce. TMZ's following me around everywhere. And you can be like, oh, these are, but no, like, dude, I wanted to kill myself, like 100%, like for sure. Like I was thinking about it. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. I can't kill myself because then it'll be the suicide 1-800 guy killed himself. And then I'll just be a meme on the internet. So I was like, I have to stay alive.
The only reason I can't die right now is because I'll be a caricature that people laugh at. That's
mind you, that's all like sick and dark and fucked up and all this other shit. But it's like I try to find the comedy in it, and for me, it ended up being like a funny page. Like suicide isn't funny, dude. Like mental health,
of course,
it isn't funny. But like, so what? We got to make fun of it. You know, we gotta. I don't know. I just think sometimes people are too sensitive, even if you're the one dealing with it and you're like saying it. But it's just like that's what I've done my whole life. I've tried to turn everything that I've gone through into a source of entertainment while also allowing that to have some therapeutic, measure over me while doing so. Whether it's through music, whether it's through writing, it's all cathartic. You know what I mean?
You're totally right. Look, comedians, you've seen interviews with comedians, how like half of them anyway, or at least like they're so miserable and the jokes all come from this like sort of dark, depressed place. Not with all of them, obviously, but a lot of it. And they're like comedy and making fun of other people like mercilessly at these roasts. It's what gets them through all these dark times. And they're watching all this really dark, horrible stuff that you're like not supposed to make fun of. And they're like, oh, I love that we can sit around and commiserate like this. And this is like their therapy. So it makes sense. And look, the book, like you said, it's really great, especially in audio format. You create for audio, which is great. So the audio book is probably even better, or at least more entertaining.
It's crazy. I'm doing all these voices and shit. Like,
yeah, you do the voices and you're imitating your mom. Obviously, no one else can do that, right? You wouldn't want to. And when you're reading it yourself, you're just reading it. At least in my head, I read paper in my own voice, so it sort of sucks because all the voices are my own, right? So your narration is funny. It's hard hitting. I was going to ask if it was cathartic to write this. You sort of just answered that. But like reading the book will kind of make you angry, and it makes you want to hug the kid version of you because your parents were you were like an orphan with parents. I think you said that in the book, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what would you tell your childhood self if you could go back and like appear in a dream or like at the skate park and be like, Bobby, here's something important you need to know?
It's funny because there's just nothing I could tell myself. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think about it. I'm like, I mean, what could I say? Hey, man, I love you.
Well, or like it gets better. You're not. It's not always gonna be horrible like this. I don't know.
I think now we're getting into like primer time machine kind of like
Yeah.
territory where I feel
Doctor
like
Who.
if I told myself that, I'd be like, fuck yeah, and kick my feet up and start smoking dope, and I'd be like, everything's gonna be all right. Like anyway, and then it actually turns into this like alternate version of myself that's like
Right.
becomes my
Yeah, the
dad.
butterfly effect, only with crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, dude. So, but I don't know. Yeah, you snapped. That was funny. Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, it's not a cop out. I'd love to
No,
give
it's
you an
fine.
answer. I just
Look,
don't
I don't
know.
have a good answer to that either. So I just always wondered if, because sometimes people are like, I wish I could tell my younger self that they
Yeah.
should brush their teeth more, whatever it is. I don't know. What do you think, like, Bobby the child would think of Bobby the adult? Like, are you surprised that you turned out well?
I'm surprised I'm successful.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a good person. You know what I mean? I'm not perfect. I have flaws. I made mistakes. Obviously, I spit in a kid's Gatorade once, but we won't get
Yeah.
into that. You know, it's like, yeah, but I think I would have turned out to be a good person. I might have made a few more mistakes because if I wasn't so focused and didn't have a dream that was, you know, music and just utterly committing myself to this one thing for my entire life, as also a form of escape and therapy, right? At the same time, I don't know what would have happened, but I am so surprised that I'm rich. Like, I'm just being real, bro. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. Like, this shit is crazy. Like, I'm like a rich guy, and I'm not. I don't say that to sound
No,
any
it's-
way.
of
This
course.
is coming from the guy from food stamps and welfare and nothing and powdered milk with roaches in my cereal and like starving. Like, I'm saying, like, I can't believe it. Like, I'm proud of myself, you know what I
You
mean?
should
And I'm
be.
proud of myself that I did it for the right way, like the right reasons, a positive message, peace, love, and positivity. Be yourself. You know, the message of equality for every man, woman, and child, regardless of race, religion, color, creed, and sexual orientation. These are things that I believe. These are messages that I've preached. And I was also made fun of for, you know, doing and saying these things, especially in hip hop. It was very taboo, let alone me rapping about Rubik's Cubes and sci-fi. And people are like, see, this is why you're not black. We're telling you, like just all the shit that I
Why
had
people
to deal
don't
with.
watch anime? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a fact. Even though it's like I discovered anime from like my black homie Robert Naples. We used to call him Robert Nipples. Anyway, and yeah, it's just I can't believe that I'm here and I'm so happy. And yeah, so I think the younger version of myself would be very proud and kind of like, whoa, because I also did it on my own. Bro, I was not myself. In high school, forget about it. I used to like steal anime from online and like take a screenshot from like this thing called FLCL, Fully Cooley, and like send it to girls and be like, yeah, I drew this.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Why
I
are
mean,
you lying? Like,
The
what are you
deep
doing?
insecurity of being a teenager. It's all
I
so
know.
cringe, and we've all done
Ugh,
it, right?
I
We've all
know,
done
yeah.
some version of that. Like, it's like the you ever watch YouTube and guys are like, yeah, this is my car, and you're just like, dude, I see myself only at age 13, only you're 30, so it's way more pathetic, and you're just like, it's so weird to see that deep insecurity of being there. A lot of people don't grow out of that, so yeah, good thing that happened for both of us, at least to some degree. You wrote that you felt like you never belonged, not at school, not even at home, you never fit in, but the insight that you talk about in the book was important, right? Now you realize it's okay to not fit in. I think you say you can't stand out and fit in at the same time, which is like kind of a geniusly subtle comment.
Oh, thank you.
Or it's a shitty cliche that doesn't mean
Yeah,
anything.
for sure. Exactly. But yeah, man, I never fit in. I didn't fit in at home because I wasn't smoking crack. I'm joking. But it's like I didn't fit in there really because I wasn't mentally ill. You know what I mean? Like I was a normal kid. So I was a normal kid that didn't fit in, and because I was a normal kid, I also kind of didn't fit in at school. I don't think most kids ever really feel like they fit in. You know,
No.
you might get a kind of niche or this or that. But even if you're like a jock, but the jock like secretly loves anime, so he feels like
Yeah.
he does. Like, who knows? You know, I think we all go through that. But especially when I got to hip hop, I didn't feel like I fit in because it wasn't like, and I talk about this in the book. It wasn't like, oh, it's Eminem, like he's a white boy, so he's outside of the circle, but he's really good at rap, so we'll just accept him as he is. It was like, no, we can't put you in a box. Like you're not black, but you are, but like you're not, but like what? Like
Like
no.
not enough for us, but also
Yeah.
not white, but also not Eminem, but also
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was just like a weird thing to try to figure out. And then I realized there's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to prove. There's nothing like, dude, just it is what it is. That's why I've only really ever talked about it in my music, like really that one time on the Everybody album, which the song 1-800 was on as well. Yeah, I just because I was tired of people trying to tell me what my identity was, which is crazy because it's just like I don't know. People saying you are this or you're not that, or making fun of me for actually being proud about it. So it's like me, I do an interview and somebody's like, "Oh, you're white. What's that like? Being a white boy, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh no, my dad's actually black." And then all the comments are like, "Why is he bringing that up? Why is he trying to prove himself? Why is he trying to?" And it's just like, "No, motherfucker, I'm just telling you what I am." And then it's just you can never make anybody happy. And I'm like, why am I even trying to make anybody happy anyway? It doesn't. I just need to. Who gives a shit what you think, motherfucker? Like this is who I am.
A lot of people are going to be like, wait a minute. If you're in that situation, CPS, what the hell were those people doing? You write that social assistance like welfare isn't there to help people solve problems. It's there to keep people with problems away from the people who don't have problems so they don't become those people's problem, which is
Dude.
probably really true. And I'd never thought about that, right?
It's a level of power that these systems hold over you, right? So it's like, think about it, dude. My mom's been on assisted living and all this for like 35 years. Like, you know what I mean? It's insane how long she's been on food stamps and welfare. She's in the same place. Like she's in the same exact place. And all of her friends are in the same place, and all the people that I grew up with and their parents and all this who were, more so on the mentally ill side and dealing with things and all this stuff, they're in the same place. So I do believe that things like food stamps and assisted living and all that can and does help people, but the majority of the people I've seen it just holds them down, keeps them here, gives them just enough money to buy food, just enough money to pay the rent so that they don't go buy crack. But that doesn't stop them from doing that. You know what I mean? Like it's a difficult thing. Mind you, that's not everybody, bro. Like, look at myself. I saw that. I utilized that. I was on that thing, and I used that to then be like, okay, well, my food, or at least most of it, is here for the month, my this, my that. And then I, even as a kid, was focusing on raps and other ways to make it out of that. And I have seen other people make it out of that who were adults, who were on welfare or this or that because they had a messed up situation, or maybe they were on drugs when they were younger, and then they went to NA or AA, and then they got in a program that helped them get on their feet, and then they got a job. And it really was something amazing. And it is something amazing. But I've just seen both sides, and I've seen a little more of the latter in the negative of people just perpetuating the same, lifestyle over and over.
You were coached by your parents, right, to talk to the social workers. They obviously use some fear to make sure that because it seems like obviously if they come over and you're like, yeah, I had donuts for dinner 3 days in a row, I haven't eaten breakfast ever, and my mom has been gone for 3 days, I've been home alone, like you would have been yanked out of there in 2 seconds.
For sure. Yeah, the big coaching, and I talk about that in the book. It's like, now remember, if she asks you if you eat every day, like say yes. It's not like I was going hungry, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they would just coach me. Because the biggest thing she would say is like, if you go to an orphanage, like you're going to get raped. And if you go to a foster home, like they're going to sexually molest you and all this shit. And I didn't even know what it was. So I'm like, what are you talking about? And then she's like, you want to know what I'm talking about? And then she'll go in description of like, they're going to take your penis and da. And I'm just like, dude, I'm like 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
it's
crazy.
a bit much.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I actually just released a little snippet online of the time my mom told me that if a man ever tries to rape me, as he's entering me, to scream at the top of my lungs that I have AIDS.
As he's entering you, which is so graphic and ridiculous.
But I'm like, what are you entering? What are you talking? There's no doors. What do you mean? Like, but I'm a child, man. Like, and it's crazy that like, it was pretty insane. Yeah.
Oh God. Well, look, your mom taught you she did some good things, right? She taught you to memorize a lot, to look up a ton of words. You built a huge vocabulary and a habit of building that vocabulary, I assume, from all of that dictionary.
Yes.
Work, which like that's a skill that comes in handy when you're a rapper, I assume.
Very much so, yeah. Anytime I didn't understand a word, my mother would make me look it up. Like when I say in the book, which was annoying at the time, but now I actually really appreciate it because it taught me to like you know, do things yourself. If you want information or you want something, seek it out, find it. And it's just more it just feels better that way. You know, it's like you've accomplished something, which is great. Yeah, she taught me how to memorize lines. You know, I think I was like Shakespeare in this wax museum kind of play where they would push this little sticker that was like a button on your hand, and then you say, "Hi, I'm William Shakespeare," blah 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 blah, and she would have me memorize the first line like over and over and over and over and over, and then do that first line in the second line over and over and over, line one, line two, line one, line two, then integrate three, then four, then five, and then before you know it, you've memorized the whole thing, and that's how I memorize my raps to this day. Music in
That's
general.
that's crazy. It's so funny that you still use that same skill. I mean, I guess it's one of the best ways to memorize anything, and if you're used to it, you're used to it. But to have that be like a skill that's foundational to what you create now, and having it come from like this whirlwind, crazy situation of a parent, is kind of, it's like poetic in a way almost, that she's like giving you the ability to do what you do now to get out of that situation, to
Yeah,
have gotten out.
I think a large part of the forgiveness is in the fact that I would even admit that, right? Because it's like if I didn't want to talk about my mother or the things that I'd gone through, I was so angry at her. I wouldn't want to give her that credit. But it's like that was the good part of her. You know what I mean? Like that was the good day, or like 20 minutes that my mom was around and doing something nice. You know, so yeah. I mean, even my social security number, which is fully 79. No, I'm just kidding. Like she made me write it 100 times. And I'm like 10 years old. What do I need to know my social security number for at 10 years old? But I never forgot it.
Do you think that growing up like that, did you think that it was tough now as an adult to, let's say, surround yourself with good people? Because you didn't have good role models or templates as a kid for who to surround yourself with. Did you have a problem developing that intuition or that skill as an adult? Because it can be like if you grow up around chaos and crazy people, you're not often like, I need to surround myself with stable, nice people who have a good head on their shoulders. Like it's tough to do that.
Well, there's my homie Josh who went to jail for like stabbing this dude in his stomach, and like kind of gutting him open. So
Jeez.
like he wasn't the best example of somebody that I should be hanging around with as a teenager, but he also had, you know, mental problems that he was going through at the time. And so you're kind of like hanging out with these kids, and as you get older, we're all kind of doing hood shit and stupid shit that we shouldn't do. Like, you know, I was hanging around them shooting guns and driving and doing dumbass shit. But I never felt like that was me. So I was like, I don't think I should be doing this. And that's when I got other friends. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, these are cool, good, normal people. And I think the only real reason I was kind of like doing dumb hoodlum shit is because I didn't want to be at home, and I wanted anything that I wanted to do anything I could not to be there. And in many ways, I was searching for a family outside of my household, but which is like honestly like gang members and a lot of people like that's what you do. That's the same thing. Like your home life isn't good. Your parents might not be shit. So it's important to try to find people who will love you. But it's just very difficult when that love also comes from a place of like, let's get this money, let's sell these drugs, let's do this, let's do that. So I saw all that and I was like, no, I don't think I don't think that's for me. Um, but it wasn't really difficult. No, I think it was difficult to find good people outside of that circle because like good people didn't really live around me. It was very few and far between. But as I got older, as I left my mom's house, that's when I just off chance by going to places like I said, Alan Watts says anything you can be interested in, you'll find others who are. So I was doing things. I was going to open mics and doing this and doing all this other stuff. That's another thing that taught me about why hip hop is so beautiful. Sure, there may be a little bit of drama between two cliques or this or that, but it was never really physical. It was always more so like, yo, his raps ain't as good as mine. But then you see him in person, and you're like, hey man, good job. That was dope. You know, so I there was a lot of love there. So when I got into actual hip hop and saw the mainstream and how negative that can be, it was very difficult. But I know and knew then that still like what makes hip hop was always full of positivity. I was always open with welcome with open arms by like the legends and the people who aren't really worried about all the BS on Twitter and Instagram. They just want to make good music and spread a positive message. So I learned to separate the two, and I think I was able to do that because I was able to separate the two as a kid trying to find what group of friends I should have.
Yeah, you mentioned like as a kid, some of the just to laundry list some of the crazy stuff. Like you went pimping with your dad while you were living with him. I actually that had to affect. Did that affect your views on women at that point? Because you're like in high school and you're out pimping with your dad. You're either looking at women differently because of that, or you just realize. I mean, did you just know that was so crazy that wasn't real life?
Was she a woman? Yeah. Was she a lady? No. I think there's a big difference. You know what I mean? It's like that. I wouldn't call her a lady.
Yeah. Well,
and so, but I knew that, you know. So, yeah, I think it was just really weird. I don't know. I was in the car one time. My dad was like, "Hold on, we gotta go make this trip." And there's some like white bitch I'd never seen before in the front seat, and she's all young, and then she goes into some house while we go to the McDonald's and wait across the street, looking at the house, and then we go pick her up, and she gives my dad a bunch of money. So it's like, what do you think happened?
crazy. It's just such a weird life to have in high school. You mentioned in the book as well that like lazy people, the thing about lazy people, I'm going to try and paraphrase because I didn't type out the exact thing, but the thing about lazy people was that they're not lazy at all. They spend so much time thinking of schemes and plans to get around doing a regular job that if they had just stuck with a regular job, they'd be so much further ahead than they really were. Like scammers are like this, right? It doesn't pay to do this in the long term. It's a dysfunctional paradigm. So it seems like you did learn that lesson pretty quick, right? Because you now know, hey, it's better to have skills, even if it seems slower, because the returns are outsized, but they come later on down the line like a snowball.
Yeah, and I think I referenced my dad being the Daniel Ocean of laziness. Of like
Yes, you did.
Ocean's 11, like yeah, like I mean, I was a little lazy. You know what I mean?
Well, you
but
were
I
a kid.
also,
It's
yeah,
different.
you're right. I was like a teenager. You know what I mean? So it's a really weird thing. I don't know why I wore this shirt.
What
I
does
don't
it
like
say?
shirts.
I was trying to figure it out the whole time.
It says Toro y Moi. It's one of my favorite musicians. But
Okay.
First of all, I love the shirt. This collar's like big, and
You want to change? I can wait. I got all the time.
Don't I just look like I'm just like, come on, Bessie, come on in the house right now. What are you doing, girl? And that's what you can expect from my audiobook, Voices by Bobby Hall. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, if you get uncomfortable and you want to change, let me know. But honestly, it's fine. Nobody cares about the video as much.
So
as
I can
the audio.
actually like pee whenever I want.
Oh yeah. If you have to go to the bathroom, just be like, "Yo, I got to go to the bathroom." We'll edit it out and then place it back together, and nobody will know.
Can we keep me talking about possibly peeing in, and then they'll just guess
we're
when
gonna
it
just
might
leave
have
this
happened?
whole section in, and then later on, if there's an awkward edit, they'll be like, "I bet Bobby had to pee. Bet he had to
Yeah.
go to the bathroom." Yeah, we'll leave that
100%.
whole thing with the collar, the shirt, and everything. It's funny. Yeah, I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one who's like self-conscious on camera from their collars and their shirts and their
Dude,
bladder.
you want to talk about self-conscious on camera? So, I found out I have cervical dystonia. Do you know what that is?
No, what is that? Wait,
It's a medical
Oh,
cervical.
Like-
I know, right?
I was like,
wait,
cervix?
I'm
No,
like, wait a second. There's something I'm not telling you. No, but it's basically, so dystonia is a form of like, it's just like a neurological disorder, but writers and painters, their hands can like cramp up and kind of go into this like gnarly position.
Wow.
When they go into that, but for me, it's not that. That's a dystonia. Cervical dystonia is of the neck, and so. And I'd like to be open about this because possibly anybody else who might be going through it out there just knows that they're not alone. But we were talking about being feeling a certain way on camera, right? And being maybe a little self-conscious or whatever the case may be. So my head shakes. And if I sit here, I'll show it to you. Check it out. Hold on, here it goes. For those of you listening.
Oh yeah.
it's shaking
Oh
back
yeah.
and
On the
forth.
video, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
slight
gnarly.
nod. You really do have to be looking for it. But
Yeah,
you
but
feel it obviously much more
Yeah,
strongly.
I feel it, and it's annoying. But at rest, it goes away. So it's not Parkinson's disease, but it's just something that can become degenerative. So yesterday, I went to the doctor, and I got 10 fucking shots of Botox in the back of my neck, deep in the muscle. So I'm about to have a young ass looking neck. No, I'm kidding. It's so deep. But basically what they try to do is weaken the muscle so that it doesn't turn back and forth. And for me, it's like, it just really sucks because when I'm doing interviews and things like that, like you haven't noticed it, but this entire time I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my hand right here for a moment. And then I'm going to put my head to the side. It's like this whole thing that I got to think
It's
about.
like a
I know it's
dance
random.
that you're doing with your neck muscles to like not trigger them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just because otherwise I would just be shaking my head no, and you'd think I was just disagreeing with everything.
For what it's worth, it's so barely noticeable. But obviously, when it's you, you feel like you're flailing your head around. It
I
doesn't
agree,
look like that.
but it would be noticeable if I were to just sit completely normally, which I wish I could do. Like, dude, even writing, like literature and novels and the scripts and shit that I'm working on, like I can't sit at a table. Like it sucks.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I kind of gotta like either lean back and like write, or lean forward and write that way so that the muscles in my head don't shake. But there's a fun fact about Bob, logic guy.
Yeah, I think it's important to share that stuff though, because people have that stuff and then they're like, oh, it makes them feel like a freak or something, or it's like everyone knows this. It's so rare. Nobody who has this is doing anything interesting because people are hiding it. It's not fair, right? It's not true at all either. So, all right, I'll skip ahead a little bit in the story here. So you get assaulted at random by just some guy who thinks you're like a Crip or a Blood or one of the others, and he freaks you out, and you start going on AOL, as all of us good nerds do, to escape in the 90s, and you get introduced to Cool Edit Pro, which is funny that you mentioned it took like all night to download, because I remember those days so much. I downloaded like a Snoop Dogg MP3 in probably like 1995, and I was like, oh, 3 more hours, I'm gonna have this track on my computer.
Yeah, you could have like driven to the store 9 times and bought the album.
Yes, I could have just reproduced the actual track myself without the vocals.
Yeah,
within that amount of time. And you find these like online rap battle chat rooms, which sounds really fun. I can't imagine what those were like in the 90s, though. Tell me about that sort of process, because that's obviously where you start cutting your teeth, right?
Yeah, this is like mid 2000s actually. So it was like 2005, 6, 7. And yeah, you kind of just go to this forum and everyone sucks.
Yeah.
Everyone's like really bad, including
like 13
yourself.
years
like
old.
while you're doing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, or maybe even older. And they're just they just always wanted to rap, but it's like kind of like poetry. And I ended up being the #1 ranked, because there was like a ranking system, and there's like #1, and I went by Lord Subliminal, and I had a picture of Bruce Lee as my avatar, and I was #1, and it was the first time I was #1 at anything besides being poor. It's really crazy. Yeah.
Right. So at that point, are you thinking, I should become a rapper? Or are you like, okay, I'm the best, I'm the world's tallest midget, so to speak, because I'm like the best rapper in this chat room where everyone sucks?
No, I was definitely just like, I was still rapping too. Like I was rapping at my house over beats and instrumentals and certain things like that. So I think I did have an advantage. I'm sure there was other people. Like I met this guy named Well Aware who used to write raps, and he was from England, and he made beats. So it's like, if I'm rapping and he's making beats, there's people here who actually do love, care, appreciate, and know about hip hop. So it wasn't really like all that bad, but it was pretty garbage.
Yeah,
just the raps, like mine, especially mine. Mine was, it was like, yeah, I'll contort you, then distort you, come back and then report you. Like what? What are you talking
but at least
about?
it rhymed. At least it rhymed.
But it was like a walking thesaurus. It was like, what do you do? I had the thesaurus, and I would just look at the thesaurus and be like, okay, the thesaurus, of course, go to the divorce, and like it was just so stupid.
But at least you're not rhyming the same way. It drives me crazy when somebody who's like on an actual CD is making a 1-word rhyme with that same word another verse later. I'm like, there's so many options, and you rhymed cake with cake. It's not creative when you do that. But I mean,
unless it's a double entendre. Like, unless it's like it makes sense if you say it that way, which is cool. Or if it's like you're saying like homie, like, I don't know, like you ain't never know me, homie. I said, done it, how you feeling, homie? So it's like if you're addressing kind of maybe the listener or something, it's okay. But I know what you're talking about, and it can be kind of annoying. Yes.
Yeah, especially when it's a word like feet. And I'm like, there's so many words that rhyme with feet. You just didn't bother to find one, Kanye. Anyway, so how did Helen Keller... How did Helen Keller inspire you? Because this is somebody where I'm like, okay, I remember reading about her in school, but I don't remember. I've never heard anybody be like, my inspiration is Helen Keller, which I thought was kind of, it was unexpected.
So I watched this movie called The Miracle Worker. Long story short, it's basically about this woman who's a teacher who goes to Helen Keller's house back in the day, and Helen Keller was blind. She couldn't speak or hear, so she was deaf as well. And there's this scene in the movie where she's basically walking around. I mean, she's like low key living on a plantation. Like her parents are like, super wealthy and got all these black folk working for them, and it's like kind of weird actually to watch it now. But anyway, so they're at this like really long table eating breakfast, and little Helen's just going around putting her hands in people's shit and just eating it, eating eggs and bacon and whatever. And the miracle worker, and Annie, I believe is her name.
I think her name was like Anne Sullivan or something, or am I making that up?
Yeah.
Anne something.
I think so.
I'm Googling this.
Google it. So
Helen
then, so the miracle worker shows up.
Anne Sullivan.
And she's like, Anne Sullivan. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I told you that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
So she sees this little girl eating all this stuff off the plate. She's like, no, this is not going to work. Like, leave me with her. And they're like, oh no, that's just the way Helen is. And they're like, no, y'all hired me to come out here and help this girl. So they leave her in the room, and long story short, she's, how many times have I said that already? She's taking the eggs and throwing it, and she sits little Helen down, and Helen doesn't want to eat the eggs and use a spoon. She doesn't want to use a utensil, and they're fighting. And she's like throwing these eggs on the floor. And I remember watching this in black and white, and it's raining outside, and I was starving, and we didn't really have anything to eat. And I was like, this bitch got more food than I do. She's just throwing it on.
Throwing it on the floor.
I'm in my head, like, this is crazy. But by the end of the scene, it's a really beautiful moment where the mother comes in once all the fighting is kind of stopped, and Helen's there, and she's like, Annie tells the mother, Helen used a spoon to eat her eggs, and she's like, oh my God, a spoon! Like, but this is huge. Like this girl's never done anything like this before. It's like insane. And then she's like, and she folded her napkin. She was like, oh my God. So then they go off to the woods. She's like, I can't be here with y'all, because like the dad was kind of an asshole, and like would just like anytime Helen was making progress, he would kind of like take her back by just letting her do whatever she wants, because she's kind of testing like a baby, like to see what she can do. So Annie's like, all right, I'm taking her to the middle of nowhere in your guys' like cottage house, and they go out there for like weeks or months. And she just makes so much progress. It's insane, but she's still not necessarily comprehending what the spelling in her hand of sign language actually means. And then at the end of the movie, when Annie's like, I can't do this anymore, like your father's telling me to leave, like blah, 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 she tries one more time, and she pumps water from a spring or a well over her hands and spells water. And Helen doesn't get it, and she doesn't get it, she doesn't get it. And then Annie's like, okay, well, bye. Like, my train's here. I'm about to leave. And then she gets it. And it always makes me cry. I'm actually surprised I'm not in tears right now, because she understands water, and she's going to the ground, and she spells ground, and she goes to a tree and spells tree, and then she goes to her teacher and spells teacher. That's the part that always gets me very emotional, because it's such a beautiful moment. And I was like, if this fucking blind, deaf girl who can't even speak can like become educated and make a life for herself, well, then I can. I could do that. I'm more well off. Not in that. I'm saying I'm
privileged.
I'm more
like you have all your
privileged.
senses. Yeah.
Exactly.
Fortunate
I'm
or whatever.
I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. Like I can make it. And I've always kind of equated a lot of my thought process to that. If I didn't understand something, if I didn't know how to rhyme the best, or rap the best, or produce and make beats the best, or record myself on Cool Edit Pro the best, it was just about the process of understanding and comprehending what water meant and how to spell it. And I've I've used that way of thinking with everything that I've ever done.
What do you think when kids from like loving homes where they have everything and they get a new car at age 16 and they're totally fine, they go to a private school, what do you think when they turn out terrible, when you came from like terrible environment and turned out pretty good? Like that has to be a little confusing, right?
No, that was my best friend Josh growing up, right? He went to prison. Like he just did a bunch of drugs, Mm-hmm. His parents paid for college, and he was like, I'm taking a year off, which is what every kid says before they fuck their lives up.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was just kind of like, all right, wow, this is weird. And he was like a gangster, but he wasn't. His family were just so sweet, there for him, supported him. Like, it's not like they didn't have like money, but he never needed for anything. He lived in a 3-story house. Like, it was incredible, but he was walking around with shotguns under his trench coat and shit. Like, it was wild, man. This dude was like watching Tony Montana and all this stuff. And it's funny because, people who actually aren't about that life, if they believe it and they live in that delusion, they become about that life. They go from just like a wannabe wankster to a real gangster who will fuck you up and kill you. And that's not a good thing at all. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think it just comes down to them personally. So it's like, I don't look at those kids or those people and be like, you shouldn't even be this. That's who you are. And that's something that even scares me as a father. It's like, I can
Me
give my
too.
son the best life that I could possibly give him, but I don't know. He could meet some stupid girl who's like doing coke in the bathroom or something, and he's just in love with her, and then you never know. I don't think so. I think he'll be okay, and I'd like to think he'll be okay. But at the end of the day, like, his parents were the best parents. Like, they're my godparents. They just visited me. I treat them like my mother and father since I didn't really have one, and I don't have them. So yeah, I mean, we are all in control of ourselves, and we are all still who we are. And I think that's also the difference between me and certain members of my family that kind of went down the same path that we saw the adults doing when we were children, and I didn't. So I think it might just be the fact that I'm just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
God and common sense, like I say.
Yeah, it's scary to see kids who have everything. Like, because of course my first gut instinct is like, well, you don't know what was going on in that house, but you actually totally do because you were there all the time. You were super close to this parent, so it's like, okay, so if it wasn't them, you want, as a father, and I know you get this, you want there to be some external cause that you can point to where you're like, oh, well, he had this thing happen, and then this other thing happened, and then also he had this mental condition, and that all coalesced to creating a bad thing, and his parents couldn't do anything about it. Because the last thing we want is to have a kid, and we're like, so I did everything right, and then they just turned out and did this horrible, and like shot or stabbed someone, and now they're in prison forever, and you're like, and I
Well,
can't
think
even
about
do
it,
anything
dude.
about it.
My family is just a history of violence and drug abuse. I am the complete opposite. So it's an anomaly, right? Really, when you think about it. So it's like, what you're describing is just the other version of me. It's just weird. It's literally, I don't know how I'm here right now with my crazy hair.
It's like an alternate universe / in our universe. Your best friend turned out like you were kind of quote unquote supposed to, and
Yeah.
and you turned out in many ways like he was quote unquote supposed to. Your name, the name Logic, anyway, comes from your old name Psychological, which, by the way, Logic, much easier to say, much
trust
easier.
me.
Did you start laughing because it's cringe to say Psychological
It
as
is
your rap
so
name?
cringe. I remember fucking opening up for Ghostface, and I was like, the crowd was loving me, and I was like, yeah, psychological, psychological. And I had like 500 people screaming psychological, and I got off stage, was like, well, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And then my buddy Lenny called me Psycho for a while, but then he was like, well, that's weird. And then he just
Yeah.
started calling me Logic, and it's funny though being Logic, because for so much of my life, like, Logic was who I was, like a nickname, like Skinny or Black. Like, it was just like Logic. Like, so his whole family would call me Logic. The kids would call me Uncle Logic. It wasn't this weird thing. But now if somebody calls me Logic, like personally that I know, it's kind of fucking weird, because I'm like, I'm Bobby. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I am. Like, and it, for sure, like, okay, we're doing this awesome podcast right now. Bobby Hall is the author of this memoir. I am also known as Logic. We're obviously discussing both of these things, but this would be a situation where it's like, hey, I'm Bobby. You know, it's just who I am. So in person, if I see somebody outside and they're like, oh, Logic, what's up? But like, if I don't know, if my assistant's hanging out with like some new girl and he's like, I really like this girl, man. She's really amazing. And I'm like, cool. And he's like, yeah, man, I think we're going to fucking do it tonight. And I'm like, okay, whatever. All right. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, I'll see you at the double date. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I go out to the double date, and somehow she's like, hey, Logic, can you? I'm like, nah, man, you got to dump this bitch, man. Like, you know what I mean? For sure. I'm like, nah, dog. I'm obviously joking. I would never.
Yeah,
actually
well, yeah, of course.
call a
Yeah, I
woman a
think most
bitch.
people realize that, but you never know. There's a lot of people that are listening. That
You
are
know
like,
what's
this is
really
horrible.
crazy though? No, what's insane is like, even just the context of like, I would never actually call a woman a bitch.
Of
Like, do you
course,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, unless she was a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, no, I mean it. I mean, but you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's literally like if she walked in the room and elbowed my wife and tried to get ahead of us in line at a doctor's office, I'd be like, oh man, she's kind of a bitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, this guy could be an asshole or whatever. It's just a phrase. I could say bad person, this and that. For me, it has nothing to do, you know, I call my homies, I'm like, stop acting like a bitch. For me, it's not a misogynistic thing. I think you can tell by my story how much love, reverence, and respect that I have for women. I've always thought it was really funny that for somebody like myself, you know, an entertainer who may be saying something in a joking manner or way, especially when you know their heart and who they are and their intentions also. When you know that somebody's intentions, it's like, okay, I'm a comedian or an entertainer. I'm telling a story. It's comical. I may be saying this in a funny way. I just find it funny that people get so goddamn offensed, like they're just offended.
Bent out of shape. Yeah.
But especially when they know who you are. Like when I can sit here and say how I feel. Now, don't get me wrong. If a woman, like, if I was like hanging out with my wife and she had a girlfriend and they both dressed up or something and I was like, damn, you bitches look beautiful. You're like, and I'm obviously like just joking. And that girlfriend of hers was like, please don't call me that. I'd be like, no problem. Like, obviously I was just kidding, but you may have some reason or this or that or whatever. No problem. I just think it's kind of crazy if I'm obviously joking and somebody would get so serious, you know what I mean? But I
think that's more about that. That's more of like them wanting attention though, right? That's like more like, okay, I need to get this person on the back foot. So I'm going to claim something is super offensive when it's not. Now, if something is patently offensive, like you mentioned the N-word with the hard R at the end, like that's when you're like, yo, you can't say that. I don't like that. It's offensive. It's offensive to other people that aren't me. Stop. But if it's like, if you're doing that in the privacy of your own home and it's like a friendly thing and someone's like, I'm going to get offended by that. I kind of question the motive there. I think a lot of it is them wanting attention. They want to get you on the back foot. Not always, but a lot of the time.
It's like, dude, women are not bitches. They should not be called bitches. It's just a thing. It just is what it is. Even me as a rapper, it's like a systemic thing. I've like had songs where I'm like, yeah, I got these bitches at my crib. And then sometimes I ask myself like, wait, why do I say that? I think it's because Jay-Z said it and Drake said it and Kendrick said it.
Yeah, it's a rap culture
said it. And it's and then I realized like, oh man, that's kind of weird. But when it comes to actually addressing women, I mean, forget about it. I just think the concept of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, I don't know. It's just like it's just kind of like the whole Chappelle thing or like just stand-up comedians in general. It's like, how can you go to somebody's show who's known for being provocative, never necessarily says something in a way that is hate speech? Like when I look at Chappelle personally, I look at a man who makes fun of everybody, every race, including his own, every gender, every this, every that, because if we're all laughing at each of these things that he's saying, we're all laughing at each other. And in a way, we're all being connected because of it. So to just be all like pissed off about it, I don't know. And I'm like a equality king. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, we'll fight for the right for anybody. But it's just like, it's just certain circumstances. Like, dude, it's a joke. And as long as it's not truly hurting someone, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going at somebody like, your grandma died, you fucking idiot. Like, geez, like, that's not what, you know? I don't know. I don't even know how the fuck we got here.
Yeah, that was all you, man. I just letting you ride on it.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I'm just playing with you. To your point, the rapping is like you can play a character, and you mentioned this in the book, right? You say, I could rap about chilling in Cabo and making millions of dollars when all I had were food stamps and a living room couch. And did having kind of an alter ego keep you from maybe feeling anxiety or imposter syndrome on stage? Because a lot of people who are in front of 1,000 people are like, who am I to be here? I don't deserve this. And it can totally mess you up.
You know, it's funny that you say that because I do feel that way. And I even wrote in the book how I felt that way, that it is this kind of alter ego. It's an image. It's like Bruce Wayne is Bruce Wayne, but he puts on the bat suit and he becomes Batman. But also a majority of what I was rapping about actually was and did stem from me personally. The things that I was going through, you know, just emotionally or financially or this or that. So it was a little more nerve-wracking because I was so honestly myself as well. So it was a bit of both. It was kind of like, yeah, I'm on stage, like I'm Logic. And when I'm holding this microphone, I'm the best rapper in the world. That's just the way you gotta have to tell yourself that to give yourself that courage. But it's also like I'm rapping about mental health and all this stuff on stage at the same time. So I think there's a lot of rappers. I think a majority of rappers are not themselves, and they are this kind of different person, and I've always just so been myself. That's why if I ever got like shit on the internet or people were coming at me or saying you're not this, you're not that, you whatever, it's just like, but I am. Like, so when they're attacking me, they're not attacking this like
cutout persona.
fictitious rapper. Yeah, this
Right.
guy who's exactly. So
Yeah, that is interesting because, of course, if you're playing a character, it's hard not to feel good enough or not smart enough or talented enough as yourself because you're making up a new identity that you're using. But if you're using your own identity, like on this show, like I'm myself, people always go, wow, you know, I'm surprised when I meet them in person. They're always like, you're the exact same person on the show as you are in person. And sometimes they're like, oh, you really let loose in person, which is kind of annoying because I'm like, not annoying, but disappointing because I'm like, man, shouldn't my most entertaining version of myself be the one on the show, not the one that's hanging out with
but
my
it's funny that
friends?
you have
But
two different perspectives of that.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of like it depends maybe on the day they meet you or their own personal how they take that experience of meeting you then.
Sure, yeah, no, of course. I mean, I think people expect me to be like more, maybe more, but no, I don't know, because maybe they think I'm performing on the show when really all I'm doing is I'm not. I mean, I guess I don't know. Whatever. I'm the same person.
I think you're just
That's
a
the
good
point.
speaker. I mean, it's like, dude, as soon as it's lights, camera, action, there's a microphone in your face. Like, you watch what you say, you this, you that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I said, honestly, that's why I said what I said about how I feel about women and like the term bitch and this and and all this other stuff is because we live in an era where somebody could try to completely take that out of
They're gonna
context.
cut
When
it
I've been
out.
sitting, like singing women's praises and how much I respect women and all this other stuff, and then they could try to do that. So, but there is a different you when you're on camera. That doesn't mean you off camera is any worse. But I've had conversations with some big people, entertainers, actors, gay, straight, white, black, this, that be saying some wild shit because it's the real world, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of crazy. And when I say wild shit, I don't necessarily mean something that's like even considered like negative. It's just like they're just talking extremely honestly, and even if what they're saying, whether me, the next person may agree with it, may not, may this, may that, we live in an era now where it's just I mean, think about it, man. Public hangings in the West, everybody loved that shit, man.
Yeah,
So
entertaining.
that's what kind of social media has become now, where it's like you might say one thing and it maybe even what you said isn't necessarily negative, but it's how you said it, and everyone knows what you mean, but we're still gonna go after you anyway.
Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, it's definitely a scary sort of, they call it cancel culture, I guess, but some of it is just accountability. But where is that line? I suppose that's the question, right? When you started to promote your shows. Oh, by the way, this was so funny when you're talking about rejection, people throwing your business cards in the trash. Take me through
My own
time.
producer, the guy who makes all my music to this day. When we first met, I was like, hey, man, what's up? Yo, I'm Logic from Merlin. Here's my business card. And he just threw that shit in the trash. I don't even know how we worked together today. Sorry, please continue.
That's so funny. That's funny, but it's so like everybody who's put anything out in the world knows how that feels, and it never like goes away. It's always in the back of your psyche. Like, remember that time that you gave somebody this, and they were like, thanks, and they just literally threw it back in your face or ripped it up. The best possibly rejection story that I've heard in a long time. Possibly in forever was when tell us the story where someone's announcing the man you've all been waiting for. This had me rolling.
All right, so I'm opening up for Mac Miller, right? This is R.I.P. Rest in peace. Great kid, great guy. I'm opening up for Mac Miller. This has got to be 2011, maybe even 10, but I think it was 2011. I'm at this club in Virginia, and it's one of those shows that's put on by a promoter. First of all, let me just explain. The promoter was also one of the performers rapping, so that should just like let you know what kind of show this is. There's a million opening acts. These kids are packed in this club that's like maybe 400 people, and they've been literally waiting for hours. And I was direct support. So when I found out like, oh, I'm going to be direct support for Mac Miller, like that's crazy. The direct support is right before the headliner. So I was like, oh my God, amazing. Like 2 hours later and like 10 acts, I'm the last guy. Honestly, I don't know why my DJ introduced me this way because...
Oh, no. Yeah, they were asking for it, right?
No, it was really funny, but he's like, all right, now the man who y'all been waiting for, and everyone's like, ah. And then this was really weird just because we would always talk about just me being black and mixed and all this other shit. And then he goes, and he's this big, tall black dude from the University of Maryland who's my DJ. And he goes, the illest white boy on the scene right now. And I was like, what? But I'm walking to the stage. There's like footage online of this. And I'm walking to the stage. He's like, put your hands together. And everyone's like, oh my God, for Logic. And everyone just starts fucking booing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I get out on the stage and I just do the first thing that comes to my head. I was like, listen, I know y'all been waiting. Mac Miller's coming out here next. I promise you're going to have to sit through me, but I'll make it quick and I'll make it fun. And then I started rapping, doing my
That's
thing.
great.
I enjoyed it and it was cool. Yeah.
This
It's the only time I've ever been booed. Well, I've been booed a couple other times, but I asked the crowd to boo me because I thought it'd be hilarious. And then I like, posted on my social media and people were like, Logic bombs. But this is just me like taking advantage of how nobody actually like fact checks anything. And I thought it would be really funny to do. But yeah.
That's actually a really good idea. I think next time I speak, I might be like, hey, boo, so that the footage has that at the end and just say it before they start recording. I don't know. There's a fun prank in there somewhere, but it might be jokes on me kind of situation. The idea that, look, you know, this just popped into my head. Moby, actually, when I interviewed him a long time ago, he mentioned that his first show, what happened, you know how he has all that electronic stuff, and like in the 90s, it was a computer that took forever to boot up. They had unplugged all of his stuff. So his first show, they announced him, and the first like 15 minutes is him plugging everything back in and booting everything and just waiting on the stage while everything boots.
Dude, I have had those moments, dog. I actually fired somebody. I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to be respectful about it.
Yeah.
But it was this person who was like in charge of. So, okay. I can sing, but everybody uses autotune, man. Especially certain songs just in rap. Like you turn the autotune up, it is what it is. And there was this one song where I just liked having a little bit of autotune on live because it wasn't really my key. Like I can sing and it's so like E, the key of E I sing well in, and C and blah, blah, blah. But it was like some random C major sharp 7 shit. I don't even know how to explain. And I'm sitting at this piano and I'm playing for like 20,000 people. And I start singing, and it's all like, it sounds like Cher. Do you believe in love after love? And I'm like, oh my God. And I get off the stage, and I like go and basically fire this person. Like on stage. And I'm not like that. And then let me also be fair, dude. I gave this person like 5 chances. They kind of messed this up like 5 times in a row. And they were just always on their phone, and it was kind of annoying. But anyway, very sweet person. Just didn't work out. So that's happened to me. I've also been on stage. Oh, dude, somebody was telling me this story and I completely forgot it. And I'm going to tell you now and I don't remember it. I was doing something. I think it was like college football or something like that where I was getting paid like a nice check to go and perform 2 songs on television. But then I was like, okay, well, 2 songs, so that means it's got to be clean, so you can't curse. And I was like, no problem, but I curse like a fucking sailor. But contractually and for the right amount of money, you better believe I'll be like, no problem, kids, here we are.
Gosh,
it's the Logic show. Yeah, exactly.
Try rhyming something with that. Yeah.
I got to farm it. Anyway, so you're just a varmint. So I'm on stage, I'm doing my thing, I do the 2 songs. But after those 2 songs, I was set up to continue a show live for all the fans who actually came out to see me. So I was like, okay, cool. So then I start doing it and I'm like, fuck rap, bustin' like an addict with a semi-automatic who'da had it any ready for anybody to buck back. Like, and I'm just like cursing. And then like they're flipping out, like they're freaking out, like you can't curse. And they're coming to me and all this other shit. And I get through like maybe 2 songs and they cut my fucking microphone off. Ooh. So contractually, it was only for the 2 songs on television, which I did. And then what am I going to do? Edit myself for a bunch of grown ass people at a rap show now? Like it doesn't really make any sense, but it's cool. I got paid and and they, you know, they were like, people were not upset at me. Cause I was even like, they're telling me I can't cuss. Fuck that. Like, it was just
you're like asking
funny.
For it.
Yeah. But it was like a funny kind of rebellious thing, but it's just like, dude, I'm a grown ass man. Everybody here's grown. It's not like it was a bunch of kids. It's not like I'm at like the World Series Little
Sesame
League.
Street cameo.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
It was just really funny. So that was crazy. Yeah, I've just had moments where like, for me, it's always the technical shit, dude. Like I hate when I'm rapping, but there's feedback or the mic like keeps dropping out, like because you don't want to continue. Like there's a part of you that just legitimately doesn't want to go on, dude. I remember being at this club and I just start rapping and the mic cuts out and it cuts out and it's off for like 10 seconds. and then it cuts back on, and then I start rapping again, and I'm 20 seconds into the song, and it cuts off, and then I'm just standing there, and it's so awkward, and I'm in a club, which I don't even go to the club unless I'm paid to be there, which I was, and it just sucks. So sorry. Long story short, couple stories short, I feel you, bruh.
You're actually a really good storyteller, and by the way, the book is a lot like this. Not where we go off on random tangents. That's on me, but like it's really
I kinda
animated
do, though.
and fun. There's tangents, but they make sense because you had an editor that was probably like, let's move that over there, and
For sure, 100%.
yeah. But it's well written and it's fun. A couple more things because I know you got to run, but I'll be as quick
all
as I
good.
can. I don't know about
We're
you,
good.
but I'll be quick.
We're cool.
The 1-800 is the number for the suicide hotline. The song, anyway, is the number for the suicide hotline. And I'm wondering, you mentioned that got you kind of thinking about suicide and depression and things like that. When you write your lyrics, do you need to put yourself in the shoes of the person whose experience it is? Like, did you have to put yourself in a position of somebody considering suicide in order to write lyrics that really hit the core of that track and that feeling?
Yeah, very Daniel Day-Lewis. You know, it's like method
Yeah.
rapping, right? It's,
Yeah.
You take all this emotion and conviction and you put it into a record. I'd be lying if I said I'd never had these intrusive thoughts before. And I think I utilized that. I utilized very dear and close friends who have also struggled with this. The biggest thing that inspired me was I rented a tour bus and I did a fan tour in 2005 where I just went to my fans' houses and just showed up and just like played them a new album that wasn't even out. And I ate with their families and had dinner, and my security guard busted up his kneecap and had to go to the hospital on their trampoline after being like, I'm too big for this shit. Don't make me do this. Yeah, no, it's really crazy.
But like somewhere in Ohio, like, why are you making me jump on a trampoline?
It was like bumfuck Texas. It was crazy. But anyway, so yeah, I did have to put myself in that kind of mental state. And the big thing for me too is like the first song that I had for the album Everybody was 1-800. Back then, it was just titled Suicide because I was just like, I just want to do a song about suicide. I don't know what it's going to be yet. And it ended up being the last record. I had even made the beat and everything, but it was the last record I actually recorded because it was just so hard to put myself in that place. And I did, and it was difficult to do, but nothing compared to the people who are actually on that lifeline every single day talking to these people and making, these dark thoughts kind of their every day or every evening. But it bleeds into your everything, especially when it becomes a worldwide hit song.
Yeah.
And everywhere you go is suicide, death, like blood. Like it's a really sick thing. But I've taken a lot of time away from music. And I think I went from being really proud of the song to then being like, I don't want to perform this song anymore, to now I'm like, wow, it's like it's probably the biggest accomplishment I've ever had in my life, as far as message awareness, and I'm happy I did it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are, but I understand how, the extra bit of fame comes to you. You end up performing on, was it the VMAs and on MTV, or was it People's Choice? I always get those confused.
No, it was the VMAs, and that's the night that changed my life for sure.
You mentioned that if you go into public life wanting love and acceptance, you are fucked. All I wanted my whole life was to be famous and blow up and have people love my work and love me, and then it all happened, and all I wanted to do was crawl back into a hole and not be around anybody. That's a good lesson, man. That's a really good lesson, because I think Jim Carrey said something similar. Like, I want everybody to become rich and famous so they can find out that that's not the answer. It's similar to that.
It isn't the answer. You know what it is? It's like a true piece of knowledge or maturity. As a parent, as a friend, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandparent, you can give advice to somebody, and they can follow that. And I think they may, if they're smart, follow that. But no matter how smart they are or mature you may hope that they are, there's just some things you need to experience for yourself. Maybe a first love and a heartbreak. And, somebody could be like, bro, you're 17 or you're 19 or you're 20. And it's like, this isn't, you don't even know, dude. Like, yes, this is normal, but life goes on. You're going to find the person you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, it's easy to say that because I had my heart ripped out of my chest and it sucked. And I thought I was going to die in the corner drinking soda. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought. But time went on, and as time goes on, like, time really does heal all wounds, dog. Like, it's a real thing. And so I think the average person who thinks that fame and money and notoriety and accolades and all these things will make them happy doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, everybody who has any notoriety or fame whatsoever who's come on that show has basically mentioned that exact same thing. And so I think like it's if you don't believe it, because everybody everywhere who I've ever talked to has said pretty much the same thing. The only guy who sort of jokingly said, and it wasn't to me, unfortunately, because he hasn't been on the show. The only guy who was like, yeah, being famous is amazing, was Samuel L. Jackson. He's like, yeah, it's pretty awesome. But even that was like on a talk show where he's
but it is. No, don't get me wrong. It is. I think these people, myself, man, like I was once broke. So I was like, oh man, if I had all this money and I'm famous and people love me and blah, 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 da, da, da. Because it's like you take regular everyday problems, but you have $20 million, you're like, that'd be awesome. But then it's like, no, because your everyday problems vanish. Well, they do and they don't. Your everyday like, oh, damn, I can't pay my car bill this month. Like all that shit vanishes. But what comes with that is, damn, I have so much money and I'm so successful. Well, what now? I've actually hit that pinnacle, and I put my whole worth and my self-worth into if I just got here. And then you get there and you're filled with fucking emptiness. And there's people on the internet that are saying your baby's ugly and that they hope your fucking kid dies and that you get cancer and all da-da-da, and that your wife is an ugly whore piece of shit and da-da, and you just see this and you're getting it every single day constantly. And every time you say something or you talk about how you feel, then people are like, well, you're just fucking complaining. What are you complaining? You're rich and famous. And then you're like, oh shit. So whether people can kind of understand that and get it, maybe that's what it is. And that's not even anything, bro. That's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, of course. Now I know you got to go in a second here, but you mentioned what social media does. What social media does is it forces you to judge your own happiness relative to what everybody else has and what everybody else thinks. And when you pass a certain level of fame or wealth, it's like nobody can relate, and it's like you're no longer allowed to be human. And that's actually really hard psychologically, regardless of what people think about, well, if I had that money, I wouldn't have any problems. It's just not true. In closing, man, okay, so you didn't have parents really, and then as you got more successful and older, you had all these new people around you because, you're making money and you're making them money. I don't mean like hangers on. I mean even like agents and stuff like that. Did you have any resentment creep in? Because it seems like it's almost like, oh, where were y'all people who love me when I didn't have a number one record? Like, of course, if it's your lawyer or your agent, it's their job. But there's a part of your psychology that's just like, well, why do people care now? You care because I'm making you successful. You care because you could buy a Mercedes because of me. Is there any resentment there, or do you just realize that that's the game?
No, I never had resentment for anybody, because actually everybody that works with me all came up with me, which is really amazing. But I was pissed off at my manager, and I love my manager. We're best friends. But he would be like, come on, man, you got to do this. You got professional obligations, bro. Like, da 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 da. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck you. And I remember telling him, I was like, dude, mind you, best manager ever. Incredible. It's literally his job to push me to get money and do certain things and blah, blah, blah. But I'll never forget being like, why don't you come out on tour? I was like, I dare you. Come out on tour. Because I was like, oh, I get it. You got business meetings and phone calls and emails and shit. And you're killing it. And you really are killing it. But why don't you come out on tour with me and do those same business calls and emails and juggle your personal life and your girlfriend and your parents. And for 2 hours a night while I'm on stage, I want you to do cardio and jumping jacks and push-ups and don't stop. And then after that, you're going to get real fucked up on tequila because you kind of want to numb yourself after that and enjoy yourself. And then you're going to sleep on a tour bus for 18 hours on your day off because you have to travel halfway across the fucking country to go to this next show. And then guess what? You're going to do all that again, and you're going to do the cardio for 2 hours, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, and then you're going to get lit, and you're going to blah, 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 and you're going to do it for 50 shows in a row. And then we're going to Europe. So I'm like, I dare you. And he was like, nah, I'm good.
Like, no, but still, it's 9 a.m. Don't be late. You're like, what? Yeah. Exactly. Man, I admire that. It's hard enough to do things from your own home. Now that we're all working from home, it's hard enough. So I can imagine how hard it is doing a tour like that. And look, the story must have been hard to write and put out there. You did it really well. This is an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
thank you for having me. Once again, I was just joking about bitches. Don't cancel me. Respect women. Nah, dude. Seriously, thank you so much. And everybody, and anybody listening out there, I appreciate you guys for caring enough to hopefully still be listening. Yeah, I hope you'll check out the book. If not, cool. This has been super fun for me, and that's the only reason I'm really honestly doing this, is to just kind of spread awareness about mental health and the respect of women. And no, for real. But no, thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for actually taking the time and actually reading the book. It means a lot. I've done a couple of these, and you can always tell when somebody reads the book and the other person's like, so yeah, that's more crack. Okay. And I'm just like, yeah, no, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So thank you all. Thank you to your amazing listeners and fans. I would love to come back sometime. This has been actually one of the most fun interviews I've done in a long time, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, same here, man. Look, anything I can do to help, let me know. And I know I've kept you for longer, and your publicist is probably going to punch me in the face if I ever see her in person. So
it's all good. Oh, are you talking about Sarah?
Who is
Or
it?
no, that's my agent. That's my book agent.
Oh,
yeah,
I don't...
Sarah? That's a bad bitch. You want to talk about somebody who'll kick your ass? I love Sarah. Sarah Pasick.
It's Kat Boyd at Simon & Schuster. I'm safe. She's nice. Yeah, no, I'm not dealing with Sarah. Sarah might punch Kat in the face, but that's not my problem. Sorry, Kat.
Shout out to Kat. Shout out to Simon & Schuster. Shout out to Stuart, my editor. Shout out to Tanner Colby, my collaborator, who helped me really see the vision on this. Shout out to my assistant, JT. This is the Grammy speech I would have given if I actually won one. Shout out to my little Bobby. Shout out to my beautiful baby and my wife. And shout out to all the people listening right now. Appreciate y'all.